Welcome again to Joe Stunner Boxing. Jose Sulaiman, not Jose Sulaiman, Mauricio Sulaiman. We'll get to Jose in a moment. Mauricio Sulaiman, or as I heard him called by someone else, Mauricio Sulaiman, which, if you've got an infantile sense of humour, I like that, Mauricio Sulaiman. Anyway, Mauricio Sulaiman has made the statement, which you may have heard, that not only does he want video technology possibly used for the Fury-Usyk fight, but also he suggested the possibility of 5 judges. Now look, Jose Sulaiman, his father, was notorious for being very, very close to Don King, okay? And the general perception was, and I think it was an accurate one, it was that King and Jose were kind of in bed with each other and would, let's just say the WBC was very favourable when it came to rankings and mandatories towards King fighters. Let's leave it at that. Now, of course, the sins of the father, etc., you shouldn't necessarily put Jose's sins onto Mauricio, but he seems to be eager to sort of, over the years, to make his own little legacy of sins, his own little repertoire. We know all about, mandatories that go on forever and aren't ordered. And, Jamal Charlo has held his WBC middleweight belt for, what is it now, 29 months or something without making a defence. And there was the whole stuff with Dillian White when he wanted to challenge Wilder, and then Wilder lost to Fury. And, you get, and if you look at the rankings, I mean, some of the rankings are farcical. Some of the mandatories aren't even worthy. So you do get all this stuff from Mauricio Sulaiman. However, you're a fool if you sort of take someone's reputation as meaning every subsequent decision they make or every subsequent suggestion they have is foolish. You have to take each suggestion on its own merits. And also, in fairness to the WBC, they do help fighters who are down on their luck, not unlike what the Ringside Charitable Trust are trying to do in Britain. Why the Ringside Charitable Trust in Britain isn't supported by major promoters and fighters, I do not know, because it's a fantastic organisation. They're trying to get together like a care home for fighters who are down on their luck, suffering from pugilistic dementia and all sorts of other issues. These guys give their hearts and souls to us for entertainment. They should be looked after and respected. But anyway, the WBC, with its ex-champions, it has helped ex-fighters in the past. So I'm not going to sit here and say that everything the WBC does is awful. Which brings us to the concept of video technology. Now, I did a separate video on this, and a lot of people were like, no, it'll ruin everything. My view is that if you use it for things like headbutts, cuts, punches that landed, that cut a fighter, that were called headbutts, I think it can be useful. But that's it. Nothing to do with counting punches. Was this, were the judges accurate with this round? Are we going to change it? You go down a rabbit hole, which would be absolutely terrible for boxing, and which would completely undermine the whole concept of having any kind of, parity or fairness. Now, a lot of people would say, well, there isn't any parity. Look how many robberies there are. Look how many close fights go to the hometown guy. Yeah, I get all that. You're absolutely right. I get all that. So what about Sulaiman's suggestion for not for video technology, for 5 judges? And I know some people say, oh, what's he on about? This is the usual crap he comes out with. I wouldn't dismiss that idea out of hand. I think 5 judges. See, if you've got 3 and 2 have a bad night, you get a bad split decision, a very bad split decision, like a Catterall Taylor, for example. And there are too many of them. If you have 5 judges, 3 out of 5 will have to have a bad night, which of course is possible. When I say a bad night, I mean they're either not on the game, they're flat out incompetent, or they're corrupt. It can be one of those 3 things. Because we all have, we all make mistakes and so on and so forth, especially in close fights. I mean, I've watched fights live, I've done reviews, And then people have said, "Oh, what are you talking about? You picked the wrong guy." And I've gone back and looked at the fight, and I've thought, okay, yeah, I can see that. So you have to be objective, and you have to be open-minded, and you have to be open to the idea that you got things wrong. But if 3 out of 5 were to get it wrong, then we really have got a problem. And then I think the ruling bodies, the WBC and others, there would be more of a, or the British Boxing Board of Control, for example, there would be more wiggle room to say, hang on a minute, this isn't about subjectivity, which is always the excuse you use. You hear, well, so-and-so, 2 voted for this guy and 1 voted for that guy, but it's all subjective. Hang on a minute, if you've got 3 guys out of 5, scoring for something that no one watching the fight did see or would have agreed with, then you end up with more room for people to say, hang on a minute, this isn't about subjectivity, this is about either incompetence or corruption. So in a sense, 5 judges could theoretically give more power to those who are, who want to find that angle for holding judges accountable, for holding ruling bodies accountable, for holding commissions accountable. And let's take the British Boxing Board of Control. I know that WBC is a different entity, but how many times have you heard Robert Smith come out and say, well, scoring is subjective and all these internet guys don't know what they're talking about, and a lot of them don't, but it's subjective, so we can't really do anything. It was only that, the only person that got punished in the Catterall Josh Taylor farce was Ian John Lewis, who ended up buggering off and trying to sue the board for racism. If there had been 5 judges and 3 had got it wrong, you got to say, well, hang on a minute, this needs a proper investigation. Now, of course, having 5 judges or 7 or 9 or 12 would not rule out the possibility of corruption, of judges being wined and dined and, and, they're given little perks and so on. And maybe even subconsciously they're doing it. They feel, okay, I'll vote for the house fighter, and if it's a close one, I'll give it to him. Yeah, of course, whatever system you have, it's the same with politics, it's the same with the corporate world, it's the same with trade unionism, it's the same with charitable organisations. There is always room in any structure for corruption or incompetence or both. So it doesn't matter what you have. All you can do is you keep fighting. There's no ultimate victory. There's also no ultimate defeat. And you keep trying to make things a little bit more watertight. You try to make a system where people are held accountable. 5 judges might, I'm not saying it would, but it might be an idea that warrants some sort of experimentation. Try it with 5. I wouldn't try it with Fury Usyk. I mean, that's just such a massive fight. It's kind of like, using video technology. If used correctly, it can be a good thing. But if it overwhelms everything and we become reliant on technology, as most people are in the modern world, you can't get them off their bloody phones. I made a doctor's appointment, trying to make a doctor's appointment. Say, you've got to go online, you've got to do this, you've got to download this app, all this shite. No, I've got a fucked up knee. I want to speak to a human being and I want him to look at my knee or her to look at my knee. Well, eventually I made a polite nuisance of myself and but the modern world is so crammed with reliance on technology that we don't want that. We want that minimized in boxing, but at the same time, technology is a tool that could be used in theory well. Likewise, other systems, 5 judges instead of 3, or open scoring is another thing. I don't like open scoring, but a lot of people have said, yeah, I like that. I think it's bad. Maybe I'll do another video about that. But we've got to try these things. Otherwise, nothing changes. And yes, you can say, well, the WBC are corrupt and the WBA are awful and blah, blah, blah. You just sit there moaning. All right, well, come up with some ideas. That's what we've got to do. I'm not saying I've got all the answers, far from it. But I don't begrudge Sulaiman or anyone else, saying, why don't we try this? Why don't we give this a go? Let's try and minimise everything, minimise the room for incompetence, corruption, or both. You've got to do that. Otherwise, nothing changes. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, those are just a few thoughts. Leave yours below. As always, subscribe to the channel. If you can hit the like button, I'd appreciate that. And looking forward to reading your comments. Much love to all of you. Thanks a lot. Bye for now.